Hello everyone, welcome to Fundamentals of C Programming tutorial. Today we are going to discuss very important concept, that is functions in C. We write program, and while writing the program, a number of lines may grow and few set of statements we may have to use again and again in our program. So it is going to increase the size of your program. Program will not be properly modularized. So to arrange program properly and to make it concise, we use the concept of functions. So what is function? Functions are fundamental building block of C programs and are used to modularize and organize code. What is meaning of modularize? Whatever different task we are doing in our program, we are creating a simple block of code of each of that task, and we are calling them as modules. So that is nothing but the concept of modularization. Here, function provides what? Way to break down program into smaller manageable units, which makes the code more readable, reusable and maintainable. How it is in example, I will tell you how we can make it more readable, reusable and maintainable. So basic concept is to understand C functions help us to modularize the program. We can reuse the code that we have already created with the help of functions, and we can maintain our program. There are two types of functions, that is built-in functions and user-defined functions. User-defined functions are again categorized into two: function with the return value and function without return value. That means the function which returns something and a function which does not return values, or which does not have a return statement basically. Now let's talk about the built-in function. What is meaning of these built-in functions? These are the functions which are predefined functions, and we use them for their specific purposes, specific tasks. So built-in functions in C are often referred to as library functions, or standard library functions are predefined functions that are part of C standard library. So whenever we have to include or we have to use any predefined function, we have to include the header file, right? We have to use header files. So these functions provide essential capabilities to a C programmers and can be used without the need for writing their implementation. So for predefined function, we do not write their implementation because they are predefined. Their implementation is already written, and where that implementation is written in header files. So for example, when we use printf, scanf, these kind of functions, we include the header files, and that header files are hash include stdio.h. So std stands for standard, I for input, o for output, that is standard input output. When we include clr, scr and getch, these two functions, for performing console related operations, we include console io, conio.h header file, that is console input output header file. Alright, so the point is we can use built-in functions depending on our requirement. However, before using them, we have to include the header files. So let's talk about user-defined function. User-defined functions are the functions that we write for our purposes. That's why they are called as user-defined function. Who defines them? The user defines them depending on the requirement. So user-defined functions in programming are functions created by the programmer or the user to perform some specific task or operations within the program. Depending on our operations or task, we write that function. These functions are not predefined or built into a programming languages, but are written by the programmer to modularize the code, improve the code organization, enhance the reusability and make the program more understandable. By considering these specific purposes, the programmer creates the functions. Now we will talk about how user-defined functions are there in C. They are of two types. What that two types? One is function with return value, another with function without a return value. It means what? Your function is going to return some value, we call them as function with return value. When function does not return anything, we call them as void function. They do not return any value to us. How to define them? We will see now by understanding the part of the user-defined function. That means when we define user defined function, what all are the part of that function? First, function return type. The return type of value that the function returns. It may be integer, it may be float, it may be wide, in case when function is not returning any value. So every function is going to have a return type, and that is what we are specifying by using basic data types depending on what type of value my function is returning. Then next we write function name. That means initially we write the return type, then we write the function name. The name assigned to a function which is used to call it in the program. Basically, when we write function name, we write the function name by considering the purpose for which that function is written. If I am writing a function to perform addition of two numbers, then in that case function name will be add. If subtraction, then subtract. If multiplication, then multiply. Are you getting this? Depending on the use, we are going to write or we are going to give name to the function. Then the parameters. The input to the function are specified within the parentheses and they are separated by the commas. It is optional. That means your function may have the parameters or your function may be without parameters. Your function may be with parameters, may be without parameter, depending on your requirement. How we write the parameters? We write parameters in the parentheses, and if we have to specify multiple parameters, then in that case we write comma separated list. How it is, we will see in example. Then we have a function body. That means whatever my function is going to do, that block of code that we have to write in a function, and it is going to contain statement that define what my function is going to do. If my function is going to do addition, then I am going to write a logic for addition of two numbers, and that is nothing but my function body. And then finally the return statement. A statement which returns a value from the function to the calling code, we call it as a return statement. So return statement, return 1, return 2, return addition, return subtraction, return multiplication, return division. So these all are the return values, and the return statement is the final statement in the function definition. Syntax is very simple. First, as I said, we write return type, then we write the function name, then we write the parameter list, then we define what my function is going to do here, and then finally we write here return value. So in short, if we go for the simple example, we can write int as the return type, then we can write name of the function as, let's say, add, then we can write here the parameters that my function is going to accept, for example 2 integer, so we need to write comma separated list of the variables, let's say int a comma int b. Here one important point to understand is that whatever parameters we are specifying, with each parameter we have to specify the return type. So see here, you can find out return type is written, the data type is written here also, and data type is written for this variable also. So for both a and b, I have specified the data type. This is the most important point that you must keep in your mind. So this is int return type, add function name, these are the parameter list. Then in body of the function, in this bracket, I can write what, let's say int c, name of one more variable is created c, and what is c? C is equal to a plus b, and then finally we can write return c. That means this function is going to return a addition of that two numbers.